At the time of this recording, it is officially May 12th, 2025, which is the second anniversary of Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And I've talked a couple of times about the game on this channel throughout the last 2 years. I didn't do like an official review or anything, but I enjoyed the game a lot. I had a very good time with the multiple playthroughs that I've had. And, you know, it's not like I'm ignorant to its many issues and to the absolutely divisive debates that have been happening online ever since its release. Like, it's one of those things where people were not, like, they felt very opposite with this game, where they did not just, like, outwardly, you know, mindlessly glaze the game just because it was a high quality Zelda game. And, you know, say what you will about, you know, and your problems with the game, and, you know, justified, absolutely. Everybody's gonna have a very different experiences, and the game is not perfect by any means. It definitely has plenty of issues, some that I've acknowledged more and more over the years as I have spent more and more time with this game, right? But the game is high quality. It's a solidly developed game. There are so many, like, unique mechanics and just so many ways to play that it's just, it really is it's an insane playground, for lack of a better term, lack of a better way to put it. It's an insane playground that Monolith and, you know, that team, or the entire team that developed that game, just has proven time and time again that they are just development beasts, man. They are absolute monsters in the room. Okay, so this is the second anniversary of Tears of the Kingdom, and, you know, I still love the game, flaws and all. It's not perfect, but, you know, I adore it. I really do. And its cracks do tend to show a little more. Of course, just like any other game, the more you play it, the more time that you spend with it, the more you compare it to other, you know, entries, especially its prior entry with Breath of the Wild, things are gonna, cracks are gonna show a little bit more, and that's just kind of how it goes sometimes, right? But I wrote this not script per se, this little outline here a couple months ago for a video that I was gonna do kind of in a more professional manner, a more like heavily edited style. But I decided that for this, I decided to just kind of turn it into a little bit of a conversation, a little bit of a yap session, because I felt like I could get all my thoughts out more that way, and I could, you know, get this out at a reasonable time, because if I did it the traditional way, this video would be so stupid late. But that's, you know, that's why I'm doing this now. So this is a Soul Ramble mode, and you're gonna be seeing a lot more of these in the oncoming future. I'm sorry, but this is the only way I have time to do videos right now. Or this is the only way I have, you know, regardless. I think that maybe Tears of the Kingdom shouldn't have been a sequel, right? Maybe it shouldn't have been. And as insane as that sounds, I feel like a lot of the problems that a lot of people have with it, even my own, could have been solved if it were like the same general idea, the same general characters and things like that, but if it wasn't a sequel, right? And of course, obviously, there's a couple of reasons as to why it was important that Tears of the Kingdom was advertised and, you know, played out, quote unquote, like a sequel, right? We have to remember that when it comes to Nintendo, more than any other developer ever, they have a philosophy, a very intense philosophy when it comes to the gameplay, and that being more important than anything else, and that includes the story. The story will always come second, or possibly even third, to gameplay and UI and just general control of the game. The story will always take second place or backseat to that. And they have been, like, emphasizing that more so than ever with the Zelda series lately. Right? The Zelda series has always been like that, but a lot more in this current era, this current age than ever, right? So that's definitely something that, you know, people definitely didn't really truly understand, especially going into Tears of the Kingdom, because we were thinking, a lot of people were thinking like, oh, okay, we'll finally get, you know, some more story, some more lore, some more, you know, characters and development, maybe some more time with Zelda, this character, that character, whatever, yada, yada, yada. But the long and short of it is, you know, we didn't get to deep dive into everything like we wanted to because of that very heavy philosophy. And because of that, what we were expecting from a sequel, you know, hoping to get more story, more lore, and more development, ended up turning into a big mess for a lot of people because their expectations were a little too high just because this was advertised as a sequel, right? And the two primary reasons, the two very obvious reasons that this had to be a sequel was this. Firstly, the reuse of assets so that we could get a game a lot sooner than we would have if they decided to start from scratch for another Zelda game, right? Of course, this is a common practice throughout all of gaming. Bunches of developers always reuse assets for, you know, sequels or like whatever, right? We've even seen it directly in the Zelda series, right? We've seen it with, you know, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, right? We've seen it with the DS games, with Spirit Tracks, with Phantom Hourglass. You know, we've seen, you know, the reuse of assets constantly. Hell, even the most recent Zelda game with Echoes of Wisdom reused assets from A Link's Awakening so that we could get another top-down 2D Zelda now, as opposed to starting fresh, completely making a brand new engine to work with. Like, why do that when we have a perfectly good engine that clearly works, right? And so they did a little bit of an overhaul with Tears of the Kingdom, and you know, what was supposed to turn into, or what was supposed to originally be a DLC ended up turning into a full-fledged game, right? So there's that. You know, because otherwise we wouldn't have seen Tears of the Kingdom until maybe this year if they started from scratch. Like, we wouldn't have seen that until the end of this year, possibly next year, right? Who knows? Okay. And the second reason is for promotional purposes, right? Breath of the Wild, to my understanding, is one of the best-selling Zelda games. I think the best-selling Zelda game. And I think one of Nintendo's best-selling games, period, like, of all time. It's so big, it was so massive, that it changed the scope and landscape of open-world games permanently. Like, it's crazy how much influence Breath of the Wild had throughout the years. People don't think about that as much now, but for promotional purposes, yeah, there was no way they could do just a brand new Zelda game and just not, you know, I mean, it was inevitable that they were gonna, you know, push this as like, hey, you all liked Breath of the Wild, so you're gonna want more of that, right? Tears of the Kingdom, it's sequel, it's sister game, it's next in line. What's up? There was no way they weren't gonna do that. That was just a money printer waiting to happen. So here we are 2 years later with Tears of the Kingdom. And what a divisive game. What a divisive situation we've been put in because this game is a sequel, right? And of course, you know, I'm not blaming it all on the fact that it's a sequel, that, you know, the problems that are present are because it's a sequel. Obviously, a lot of these things could have been touched up on and things like that. I just feel like the blow for a lot of people, the issues that a lot of people have, definitely would have been a little more diminished if this weren't a sequel, but more of like a sister title. If it played more into itself, kind of like Ocarina of Time did, where it kind of just, or I'm sorry, not Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, where it just went and did its own thing, where it just kind of like, yeah, it shares the world maybe, but, you know, just don't even think about Breath of the Wild, which is very hard to do when you're pushing it as the sequel to Breath of the Wild. You know, because Majora's Mask wasn't advertised that way. It wasn't advertised as, you know, this, or was it? I don't know. I don't remember, but I don't think so. Not to my knowledge, anyway. But regardless, strange thing, right? And so, here's my thing, right? There's a lot of things that suffered from it being a sequel, right? Starting with the story aspects, right? One of my personal biggest problems, and a lot of people's biggest problems, was the fact that they seemingly just eradicated a majority of the history in regards to like the original Great Calamity and the champions and things like that. Everything that was like so heavily delved into and important lore-wise when it came to Breath of the Wild, just completely just not important whatsoever. You know, the stuff with the Guardians, the stuff with the original war between the hero and either the goddess or, you know, the Zelda of the time fighting, you know, the Calamity Ganon, you know, and like everything that happened there, everything with the Sheik attack, that's a big one with people. The fact that the Sheik attack was just completely eradicated with absolutely no explanation as to where it all went. It just, quote unquote, disappeared one day as, you know, PR had to tell us because, you know, people were getting fed up with having no answers. Okay? All of that stuff just completely disappearing and being delegated to like one side quest that's completely optional, that barely even delves into it that much. That felt like a disservice. That felt like such a slap in the face to a lot of people. Especially when, you know, all of that lore and history is so heavily integrated into the world, to completely just not acknowledge any of it. It's so weird. It's so strange. And it's like, you know, I can't help but imagine a future in which, or a timeline in which, if this weren't advertised as the sequel to Breath of the Wild, it just kind of like shared the same general idea, it just wasn't like, you know, the direct sequel, then this would have been a little bit less of a problem, because, hey, maybe we could have played it off as the Sheik attack never really existed to begin with. We could really just focus in and hone in on the Zonai tech, and that can have its own lore, you know, on the timeline, you know? Maybe they could be two parts of the timeline. Maybe one of them could be on the loser's timeline, one of them could be on the winner's timeline. I don't know. They could have played around a lot more with that if they didn't utilize it as a sequel, but because of that, it's really hard to disconnect from the original game, which means that all of the important stuff, all of the very heavy story lore important stuff that was present in Breath of the Wild, not being present, mentioned, or acknowledged in Tears of the Kingdom, was extremely frustrating to see. And that's so weird when you have such a nice world that you've spent so much time building up. And what an odd decision. What an odd decision to make. I don't know. And then, of course, after that, you have the situations with Zelda, right? Firstly, you know, the fact that she didn't even mention, like, the major events. I mean, hold on. I could be wrong on this. Hopefully, when it comes to Hyrule Warriors, the Imprisoning War, right? Or the next, you know, Hyrule Warriors game. Maybe we could see a little bit of, you know, her bringing up, like, what happened during her time before she went to the past, you know? Everything that happened for the 100 years while she was, like, single-handedly holding Ganon back. Everything that happened leading up to that, the war 100 years past, you know? Maybe we could see, you know, her mentioning that. But the fact that we never saw her bring up or like possibly mention, you know, the fact that Ganon or Calamity Ganon might somehow be related to Ganondorf in any way, shape, or form. Maybe some kind of warning or something of, you know, how dangerous it was then, like how dangerous he might be now. That's weird. That's super weird that we just don't see that. Or that she just doesn't happen to mention that. Something so insanely critical, right? I can't imagine a situation where you're so wrapped up just being in the past with your potential ancestors that you don't mention the single thing that might help them gain an edge in the upcoming war, which is the fact that Calamity Ganon might have originated from the guy that they're fighting, so he may have some immense power that you need to get a hold of as soon as humanly possible. That's crazy. That's crazy. Right? I can't imagine a situation where you wouldn't warn somebody about that. And then, of course, next to that, I mean, I already mentioned it, the fact that they just don't connect Calamity Ganon and Ganondorf whatsoever. Like, there's absolutely no explanation as to the connection between Calamity Ganon and Ganondorf, because it's very, I mean, you could have easily had a, I mean, we saw the malice, whatever, that was erupting from Ganondorf when we first met him in the, you know, the underground chamber where he was originally sealed. But, like, the fact that that didn't somehow connect to what was happening with Calamity Ganon at all? Like, are we just supposed to assume that him being down there for God knows how long is what summoned Calamity Ganon, and just, like, his determination to be let out is what manifested Calamity Ganon, and that thing is just been around and so powerful for that long that ancient warriors had to, like, take it on themselves multiple times? Like, I don't understand. The disconnect there is insane to me. So I'm not a fan of that. And again, if it weren't a sequel, you wouldn't really need to connect it to all that much. Each game could have its own unique history when it comes to Ganondorf, but we didn't do that. Why? Such an odd, strange decision. And I don't know. And then, of course, there's the situation with, like, certain characters and stuff not getting the proper, like, limelight. You know? Of course, like, you know, characters like Riju got their proper time in the limelight. You know, you got Yunobo, who got his time in the limelight, albeit not the way I would have done it, but whatever. You have Sidon. It was inevitable he was going to get his time in the limelight. But then, like, Teb? He was utilized as such an important figure in Breath of the Wild, even to the point where in Age of Calamity, despite it not being canon, he went to the past to help. Like, what are we doing here? Because why is it that in Tears of the Kingdom, Teb got completely sidelined, completely shafted for his son, Tulin, who had basically zero presence in Breath of the Wild? Like, Tulin, for whatever reason, remembers Link better than a majority of the other NPCs from Breath of the Wild. Like, why? Tulin barely had a presence. Why does he, A, remember you that much better than everybody else? B, is the one that obtains Revali's... I don't know. I don't know if I'm a fan of that either. That's such a weird decision. That one that, again, you could have made... It would have been better at that point to just have made a completely original character for in every aspect in this case. Like, all of the sages could have been new characters. But I don't know. It's such a weird deal. Such a weird deal that I feel, again, definitely could have, you know, benefited if this weren't a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. And then, of course, there is the gameplay aspects, and that's like critical stuff, right? I mean, no, it's just as critical as the story, but like one of the biggest problems that I had definitely with Tears is the fact that, you know, it's weirdly more accommodating to the newer players than it is returning players. And, like, I guess that's fine. They were fully expecting a lot of newcomers to Tears of the Kingdom, which is probably partly why they were so heavy on trying to make sure that the newcomers had a good experience, that it kind of made it so that all the, you know, majority of the older players, the people that are coming from Breath of the Wild, were a little bit sidelined and just treated like newcomers regardless. And so, you know, they get handheld, they get, like, just, I don't know, they get treated like they were never here to begin with. Like, we don't get rewarded for having been played Breath of the Wild. In fact, it feels like we're punished for it instead. You know? We get so many just insane tutorials. Like, I know this game utilizes a brand new, you know, engine with not engine per se, but like a lot of new physics and things like that we got to learn, and that's fine. But like we didn't need hand holding for every single aspect, especially when it comes to how they treated shrines, because there was a lot of shrines. There was like a good handful of shrines at the beginning. You could easily miss some and end up coming back accidentally to a tutorial shrine, teaching you within your 15th hour of the game how to parry. Like, what? I've been knowing how to parry my entire playthrough from my previous game and this one, but I'm running into a shrine so late in the game because we can get these shrines in any order that I'm being taught how to parry, and it's like mandatory. Like you can't like tell the game, hey, I know how to do this, or maybe the game can't sense that you've been playing for a majority of your time and be able to be like, oh, you already know how to do that, just perfect it here, go. It needs to teach you step by step how to do it. And the worst part about the tutorial ones is that they are so slow. Like, they have to tell you individually how to do every move and how to utilize every button, and then it won't let you proceed until you do it exactly how it tells you. The enemy won't take proper damage or anything. That's crazy. That's crazy. Once again, not a massive fan of that. Okay. I don't know. That's just strange. Right? And then, right? And of course, I guess these are kind of like, maybe you could call them nitpicky, but like, when you add an entire gameplay element that provides what a lot of people would feel like a big nothing burger, I feel like it's a reasonable complaint, right? So what I'm talking about here is the fact that they utilized in advertising the fact that we had an entire sky realm to explore. They made it seem like we were going to be up there and we were going to be on Hyrule just as much as we were in the sky. Not true at all. Not true in the slightest, right? They advertised these sky islands like they was finna have something to do. Maybe you'll do a puzzle here and there. You know, we had one mandatory puzzle. It's not even mandatory, actually. I found a way to skip the entirety of Mineru's puzzle and to just get to her instantly and just go. On my most recent playthrough, I got Mineru first. That's insane. The Sky Islands are useless. They truly are, because other than like a couple of puzzles and shrines that might be up there, you could easily go a majority of the game without spending that much time in the Sky Islands. That's super unfortunate. The tutorial, big overstatement. Like, that is just almost a lie as like what you could expect, you know? No explanation on those either. Another story aspect that's just swindled. Weird. I don't know. It's just weird that they spent all this time not only building Sky Island, but the depths. 6 years on these things. And they felt like they didn't really add much at all to the overall experience. How did this happen? Again, this one's finicky, right? Because again, I could say that this is another situation in which this probably may have benefited from not being a sequel, but this is a situation in which, you know, again, they were reutilizing assets so that they could kind of like get away with having a similar world, just adding on to what was already there, right? But they didn't add as much as they could have. Or at least they could have, you know, made more interesting missions and rewards possible to obtain specifically in the Sky Islands and the depths, but they didn't do that. Everything, a majority of your time is still spent on, or rather in Hyrule. So, yeah, that's frustrating. I think it would have benefited if we just kind of had a situation in which this weren't a sequel and you could have focused entirely on having us in the Sky Islands or the depths and not just Hyrule. Maybe make a smaller Hyrule, but focus more on the depths, more on the Sky Islands, you know? I don't know. Just big wasted opportunity. And on top of that, right, this is the Nothing Burger is what this is the biggest thing, is the fact that a majority of the big rewards in the depths, like, because those first couple hours you're thinking like, oh my god, there's so much to explore, like this is almost overwhelming, there's gonna be so much to do. No, you're gonna go down there, you're gonna get a bunch of Zonite and max out your your battery belt in 5 minutes, and then maybe if you feel like it, get all of the amiibo costumes, because the primary reward that you're gonna find down there in the depths are the amiibo costumes from Breath of the Wild. That's crazy. What were they cooking with that one? What were they cooking, gang? Because I certainly don't know. Beyond me. Truly, genuinely beyond me. That sucks. Right? Overall, the gameplay just being like a copy paste with like no real additions either. Again, 6+ years on this game and we couldn't get maybe some more unique abilities for Link's fighting style. Maybe we could have some more like combo heavy stuff that we could have added onto him. Maybe some kind of like stat wheel. I don't know. Like something. Because we had the exact same fight this entire game. I don't know. It's a strange situation. Overall, there's no debate, regardless of if Tears of the Kingdom should have been a sequel or not, when it comes to the fact that this game needed more time in the oven. This game needed a little more time to cook, even after 6 years. Which is insane, because no game needs to take that long unless it's like, I mean, even GTA 6 is like absolutely crazy, right? But like 6 years, and I don't know, it feels like we're just lacking a lot here, you know? Despite my love for the game, don't get me wrong, don't get it twisted, I still adore this game. It's so rough. It's just so rough around the edges, and it still needed more time in the oven to really hunker down, focus on the story elements that do matter, focus on this, you know, the connections and things like that, you know, give us a meaningful story, give us, you know, gameplay that doesn't make everybody feel like a complete newcomer. You know, it's one thing to introduce us to a brand new world. It's another thing to reintroduce us to a world that we've known for 8+ years and not even get, you know, the courtesy of, you know, acknowledging that. Not getting the courtesy of being acknowledged that, yes, I've spent time in this world. Let me prove that. Let me get back into this playground with all these new toys. Nope, you have to teach us. You have to handhold every single new player, or every single returning and new player hand by hand, because we can't be trusted to play the game ourselves. Weird. Very, very weird. Very weird. Well, one thing is for sure, though. Era of the Wild is done. We probably won't see too much more of it after Hyrule Warriors, which, I mean, maybe they're lying, I don't know, because they did say they were done with Era of the Wild, and we're getting another Hyrule Warriors game. That's crazy. The last 3 years have had at least one major Zelda game now. Crazy stuff, but whatever. End of the day, I don't know. I feel like there could have been a lot of situations in which Tears of the Kingdom could have benefited from not being a sequel and kind of going out of its way to do its own thing. There's a lot of things that I want to see going into the next Zelda game that, you know, I really do hope that Tears of the Kingdom learned from. All right, we want real stories. We want to be able to prove that we can, you know, handle ourselves. You know, we want some more unique combat. You know, and if we want story, these have always been things that people love to pick apart for their stories, their lore, the unique characters and developments. And Tears of the Kingdom didn't take advantage of that. That's really sad. So, I didn't mean to get all like sad about it, you know. Happy anniversary to Tears of the Kingdom. Regardless of your flaws, regardless of your cracks, I still love you, and I will still be playing you for time to come. You know, I'll find myself back in that version of Hyrule probably within the next month or so when we get the Switch 2 edition. You know, so we'll have to play that back here. But I think I rambled enough. I'm passing the mic over to you guys, and I want you guys to tell me everything that you're thinking in the comment section below. Do you agree that maybe Tears of the Kingdom would have benefited from not being a sequel? That maybe we could have seen some major changes, and, you know, we would have been a little more forgiving about a lot of things if it weren't treated as a sequel and we, you know, got it turned into something a little bit more unique and different? Or do you think that it's fine that it was a sequel, they just simply needed more time in the oven to actually cook something proper and cohesive in terms of story, in terms of gameplay, and that you felt it was lacking because they should have played more into it being an actual genuine sequel instead of whatever this weird in-between was? Tell me everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I'm always going to be down there with you guys. But with that, it does appear to be skedaddle o'clock. So I'm going to go ahead and do just that. I'd like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this here. And with that, I'm gone. So thanks again. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor, taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time.